So we're back in the studio, and thankfully you guys have given us loads of questions to answer. So I'm going to try to get through those today and shed some more light on the issues that you've been experiencing. And generally the goal, of course, of answering these questions is to just make airbrushing more seamless, easier, and a lot more fun to access the creativity that you all have inside of you. Okay, so this question is pretty cool, actually. So the question is how to use stencils and masks. So before we start, what is a stencil? What is a mask? Stencil and a mask is anything which has got a hole in it through which you spray paint, which then leaves a shape on the surface that you're trying to paint. So for example, if you had a piece of acetate with a hole cut in it, a circle cut in it, if you held that over the object you're trying to paint and you spray into it, then obviously it's going to create a paint shadow and leave a circle on the item that you're looking to paint. The difference between a stencil and a mask is typically that a stencil does not have any adhesive backing to it, whereas a mask does. And that's a pretty critical difference. Stencils typically don't give as perfectly sharp an edge as a mask does, and that can be a characteristic that's desirable or not, depending on what you're trying to do. And masks, because they're stuck down to the surface, they stay where you put them exactly, and of course they give you a very, very, very sharp edge when you remove that mask. So what are the do's and don'ts of using stencils and masks? So first of all, is they're really, really useful, and anything can be a stencil. You know, you can spray through objects that you find around, like spraying through a feather can give this kind of textured effect. You can spray through the blades of a fern onto a canvas to get a kind of a randomized texturing effect on there if you're trying to create some kind of dappling or something. So there's all sorts of things you can use for it, and lots of ways that you can use them. If you want a really sharp edge, the closer you put the stencil down to the surface you're trying to paint, the sharper that edge is going to be. If you want a little bit of a blurry edge, like some camouflage edges, for example, you might use some little balls of blue tack to stand the stencil off the surface slightly. In terms of how you interact with the stencil, you want to be thinking about how far away you are. So if you've got a gap between your stencil and the substrate that you're painting, if you're very, very close to it, then depending on where, if this is the edge of your stencil here, and you're painting at an angle that puts you under it, you're going to blur that edge more than if you're painting at an angle that makes you paint over the edge. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So you need to think about where you're hitting it from, the distance that is away from the surface. That governs how sharp the edge that your stencil is going to create. It's really important with masks and stencils that you never ever allow the mask or stencil to become wet with paint. So with a stencil, if you allow the paint to become wet, what will happen, it'll bead up on the edge and it might drop onto your work, which is a very bad day in the studio. If you do that with a mask, what can happen is it can actually start to seep under the edge of the mask into the adhesive. And the horrible thing about that is, you know, you only discover that after you've done all that work into the mask, and then you pull it off to find that you've got some paint seepage under there. Top tip with masks I'm going to give you: if you've got an edge that absolutely has to be properly razor sharp, let's say you've got a gray substrate and you're painting onto that, for example, with a black. Put the mask down. Before you start to paint the black, just put a very light coat of gray along the edge of that mask. And what that'll do, and let it dry, that will seal up that mask edge with the same color as what's under the mask. And then when you paint into it with the black that you're following it with, the chances of that seeping under at all is very, very, very low, because you sealed that edge with the gray paint. So that's the best tip that I can give you for getting the most performance out of masks, is never let the paint get wet, and seal the edge of the mask with the same color that's under it before you go onto it with the next color. So hopefully that helps you to get the most out of painting with stencils and masks. Even for textured models like miniatures and so on, it's fun to experiment with stencils and masks, because you can get a lot of detail on that would be difficult to reproduce with a brush sometimes. It's a different kind of detail you can do with a mask, but it's definitely something that's worth experimenting with. So the thing that I'm really enjoying with these questions is I'm finding that as I answer them, I'm hearing the question and I'm hearing different aspects to it. So on this one, the question is, can I use inks with the airbrush? Now, simple answer is yes. Okay, so that's done. What we're now going to talk about is what it's reminded me of, which is candy paints. Now, candy paints are something that all the automotive painters out there are going to be intimately familiar with, but maybe not many of the rest of you. And they are really worth looking at and watching a few videos from the automotive side, from airbrushers who are out there painting cars and bikes and helmets and things, to understand how to really use them. Now, what a candy paint is, it is like an ink. It's something that tints whatever you put it over. I like to think of it like, it's called a candy because it's like a candy wrapper. So you know those boiled sweets that get wrapped up in like a beautiful green wrapper or a beautiful yellow wrapper or a beautiful red one. And when you open up the sweet tin, they all look amazing. And as you take the wrappers off, you find out that they're all actually just white boiled sweets. So candy gives a whole new lease of life to anything that's under it. So the way that it's often used in automotive is you might do a really moody kind of gothic scene that's completely in monotone. Okay, there might be some metal flake in there as well, but it might be completely in monotone with all the detail put in monotone. And then you hit the whole bike with a candy, perhaps it's a blue candy or red or whatever. And what the candy does is, because the color layer is fully transparent, so candies are made to be completely transparent, they make a blue bike or a red bike or a yellow bike or whatever the candy color is, but it's with this incredible depth of color. And because all of the detail is not part of the color tint, it just gives a level of depth of shading and clarity to the detail that's under it that you wouldn't get if you tried to paint the detail in the color. And so I think where it's particularly useful in the modeling application or the miniature application is, painting down a lot of detail with a brush, for example, some very sharp detail. Maybe there's some dry brushing that you've done. And if you want to imbue a model with an otherworldliness, take a look at some automotive candies. An interesting brand for that is Createx. They do a pretty nice line of automotive candies. Just buy one or two and just experiment with them in the fantasy miniature world, because they've got some absolutely spectacular effects. And you can use, they're very simple to use. You just put them down as an overall layer over a model or a surface or a part of a paint job as a general spray, and then you just control that color buildup by how many layers you put down. They never obscure any detail because they're fully transparent tints. So I think it's kind of a fun thing. I don't see it being used so much in the miniature painting side, and I just know how wonderful a lot of the candies are in the automotive sector, and I'm sure that you guys could do a lot with them. So I'd encourage you to take a look at them and experiment. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and more than anything else, please comment and give us your questions on the issues that you'd like to know more about. Give us ideas for features, because really the whole point of this channel is just to serve airbrush users and give you more of what you need to know from people like us. Thanks so much for your support.